And when we have genuine encounters with God, when we organize ourselves as a church who exists for the sake of others, I think it reveals that we have to learn how to give ourselves to others without colonizing them. And here's what I mean by that. All too often, as Christians, when we serve other people, when we give ourselves to other people, when we say that we exist for their goodness, ultimately all of those efforts are so that we can convert them over to our particular brand of Christianity. But that, I think, is not what God calls us to do. I think one of the things this passage reveals to us, and other passages like Galatians 5:22, which teaches us that there is no more any distinction of culture or gender. There's no longer any distinction between Jew or Greek, slave or free. There are no longer those barriers between the people of God and those that we call not the people of God. All those barriers have been erased. Therefore, we can bring ourselves to others in goodness because of our worship without having to convert them to our way of thinking. Another way to say this is that we can still have our culture, our practices, our values, our artifacts of worship, the symbols that are meaningful to us. We don't have to give those things up, but nor do we have to expect others to adopt them. We can exist together in God's grace, learning from each other without colonizing each other, without conquering each other in the name of Christ. Now, part of the process of us entering into this time as a church of reimagining our future together for the next 3 years is we've started a series of listening sessions. We're calling these listening sessions because we're inviting all of you as congregants of the Oceanside Sanctuary to show up to these sessions, and we just have a series of questions, and these questions are meant to uncover or reveal what our deepest values are as a congregation, what our most cherished practices are. In other words, what are those things at the heart of us as a church that make us who we really are? And so I really want to invite you to attend these listening sessions. There are 5 total, and we already had one this week. And today I want to share with you a quote that came out of that first listening session. It was by actually a brand new congregant at the Oceanside Sanctuary, somebody who's only been coming for a couple of weeks. But when we asked the question, what are the most urgent needs facing the church, or what are the most urgent needs facing the church in North San Diego County, here was one of the answers that we received from one of the attendees at that first listening session. Here's what they said. There is a quiet exodus from the church that we have become aware of. People of color are leaving predominantly white spaces, and many are not going back to church at all. They're beat up and disillusioned by what they've experienced and what they've seen, where only their labor is desired, but not their voices. I suspect God is raising up churches where they can be healed. Now, that quote, that little bit of feedback that we received in that first listening session really overwhelmed me because it's a powerful insight into partly what I'm talking about here today. There are all kinds of people in our culture in the United States because we are a pluralistic society. There are all kinds of people that represent different cultures and different perspectives and different backgrounds and different ideologies and different beliefs and different socioeconomic backgrounds. And of course, yes, different skin tones, different races, different ethnicities, different religions, or no religion at all. And one of the hard things about our culture is learning how to relate to each other across all of those divides. I think God's challenge to Jonah gives us a really helpful way of thinking through how we can bring what we have to offer to those relationships. Whatever goodness God has given us, whatever words of healing God has given us, we can bring those to those relationships without expecting those folks that we are serving to become just like us. That kind of colonizing move where we feel like we have to conquer everybody and make them just like us is exactly what is at the heart of many of the racialized problems we have in our society today. And I think it's possible that one of our future callings as a church is that we continue to be the kind of church that can reach out and help bridge those divides and help welcome a diversity of people into the great, big, wide grace of God.